Progress, episode 21. On today, we have Jason Brown. Jason is one of the founders of Be Alive, a production company out of Midland. And if you've heard any of my other podcasts, you would know that I want to make a TV show. And I kind of pitch it to him here. So let's get it started and see what he has to say about it. So, if that's going to go, that kind of leads into the first thing I wanted to ask you about. I don't know how much you've heard about it, but my van that I got, I'm wanting to renovate that to make a mobile studio for a podcast.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to be gutting it completely, and I was wondering if you had any ideas on what to do maybe to it slightly that I can do even pre-everything that would make it better acoustically, or at least wiring or something to set up for that when it happens.
How big's your van?
Like a shuttle bus. It's like a dial ride.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We did a podcast. It was called My Adventure Life, and a guy had transformed like an old Jeep into this mobile recording studio, and he didn't really record in it, and it wasn't a Jeep. It was a Jeep. It was like a Jeep station wagon.
Okay.
It was pretty badass. Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So I mean, I got the bed out the back, so I have literally all of that space. Anything on the inside.
You'll probably want to have some sort of inside. I would say with all the windows, it'll be really, it'll echo a lot in there. Yeah. And same with the roof. It's probably a tin roof, right?
Yeah, it's the fiberglass.
Yeah. So anything that you can put on the top of that to knock down the echo. I'm really into these vans right now, and I've been wanting to find something, whether it's a old big Suburban or you have the Sprinter vans and stuff, but those are a little more expensive. There's a big movement right now for content being shot in and out of these vans, and guys are going across the country. And for you, why I think that would be pretty cool is for you to take that van on the road and literally map out your 10 stops. Along the way, I would set that up. I would actually set your van up with video. So you could have static cameras that are kind of in different spots inside the van. So when you have somebody in there and you interview them, you can just record it at the same time.
Yeah.
Kind of all-encompassing deal. But then as you travel, from place to place, you kind of document your journey, and you build up a little backstory on who you're going to interview. But yeah, I mean, that's something we've looked into, producing a show like that. So that's pretty interesting. I think what it comes down to is, making sure that you have some really solid guests.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I always, what you look at, like we've pitched shows to Animal Planet, Discovery Channel, Nat Geo, History Channel, Netflix, Amazon Prime, all of them.
Yeah.
And we've had some incredible series that we've built, and you build these pitch decks and you run it and you pitch it to them, and they always look for the things that you didn't see around, what networks want. You never know what they want.
Yeah.
But for you to be able to find really cool, good guests would be
the crucial part.
Oh, it'd be crucial. But also, what's your theme? What's your angle? What are you doing different?
Okay,
so tell me.
Exactly. This is perfect. So in 4 years, I hope that was my plan. 4 years, I would save up. I took that GM spot so I could make enough money.
Yep.
Pay off my van, pay off my car, renovate, get a camera set up, do all this, and I want to go out and film. And I've already kind of bare bones, but it's going to be called Go While You Can.
Yeah.
Because everyone that I ever told about getting a van, they're like, oh, just do it while you can, and do it now before you can obviously get stuck somewhere and have a career and whatever.
Yeah.
So they're all saying go while you can. I'm sitting there, I'm like, that's such like a simple like
It's a mantra.
Yeah, exactly. So I
Yeah.
was like, let's go with that. And the whole idea was going to be, it would be like a two-parter. I don't know if you've ever seen like and this is kind of what I based it off of, but like Zac Efron's
Yeah.
docuseries.
Yep.
Exactly. So the first part would be me just going on these adventures, going while I can,
yeah.
and then meeting people that like my
Along the way.
guests
Yeah.
that also did something along those lines.
Yep.
That it could be literally anything, just as long as it spells out that.
Yep.
So I was thinking about like literally, you could have like people like Brandon Calhoun, like musicians that just
Yep.
left home, did what they did.
Yep.
You could have, I mean, anything. It could be just like a guy that went to work on the pipeline. He left home and did that. Like just anything where travel was involved, and travel was one of the bigger, like not let down, but like one of the hardest things to do was to go from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge for all these people.
Yeah, I think, and it kind of fits into like we've got a couple different mantras, a couple different campaigns, if you will, for Be Alive. In the first campaign we're kicking off here in the next couple weeks, actually, is called The Stories of Us, and Be Alive is in this. I'll bring it all back. Be Alive is we call it a we brand. You know, it's not about me, and there's so much these days it's about me. It's about me. I'm here. I climbed this mountain. I did this. I. We want Be Alive to be an inclusive brand, so it's about doing it with other people.
Yeah.
The second campaign that we're kicking off, our second campaign is called Here's to You. So it's really going around the country and shining a light on people that are doing great things, you know, in the outdoors and doing stuff that they love. But a campaign, and kind of like one of our mantras that we've had for a couple of years, is called Born for This. And it's about people that were born for something, you know, whether it's born for doing, you know, like you said, going out on the pipeline, and they might love that, the open air, the big you know, the big machinery, and you know, the remote locations. They might be born for that. But you have people like Brandon. He's a born musician. Like, he was born to play music for people, and he's born to write. And so for us, this Born for This idea, this slogan, this kind of this mantra we have, is finding people that are truly born for something in life. And it kind of seems like what you're talking about is go while you can, is kind of like that. It's like you know, people that were found that found something they were born for and just did it.
Yeah.
And that's so that really fits in, you know, your idea and your concept, and you know, how you want to kind of set your podcast up.
Yeah.
It really is. It feels like, you know, finding people that were born to do something in life, and it called them.
Yeah.
It called to them, and they went out and they did it. And I like that. Go while you can. That's a good phrase. It's a good mantra.
That's what I mean. Once it hit, I was like, that was it. That was going to be the thing.
Yep.
That's cool that it like has so much resemblance to something that you're already doing. That's really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, that was a good start. I guess that was. I didn't expect it to go that way. But what I'm also planning, like, I've already got a couple people that are kind of on the radar for that. I've also, one of my podcasts that I did, his name is Robert Giard. He was one of the big bodybuilders back when Arnold, like in the 90s with them. Like, he was like the next guy below. Like, I have like magazines on his like Instagram that I can go see, and like it's him and everything. And we were talking about when I went to that trip to California, he's like, I have so many connections that I can hook you up like with out there. And one of them ended up being like a producer or a productions agent out there. What was his name? Clinton something. But he does Norse Productions, and I was like, that would be so cool, like, to meet up with him and then see what they got out in California, like what we could do. And I don't know, it's just the fact that the podcasting has brought around so many possibilities that I never thought were even going to be possible.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I'm just like, oh, I do this podcasting, and he's like talking about himself, and we're obviously both talking about him, and then that's what he brings up. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what? How does that end up?
Yeah.
It's nuts.
No, I mean, there's so many people that want to help you out, and I think, you know, what I think is important too in a podcast is, you know, what's your story? You know, making people, you know, having them buy into your story, because your story plays into all of this too. You know, so that's what we've seen as a big part of podcasting. And there's a podcast that I love. I don't know if I'm kind of have that entrepreneurial spirit, but it's called How I Built This. And How I Built This is stories about, you know, some of the greatest companies, the biggest, most successful companies in history. And a lot of them, you know, they've had Instagram, they've had like Bonobo's pants they just had on the other day, Ken Burns films, people who have, you know, started something basically on passion, doing something they love, an idea that they have, a problem that they've looked at and said, man, I need to, there's a hole here. I'm going to build something. I'm going to create something to fix that hole for people. And what's interesting is it all starts with like a passion, you know, and that's an incredible podcast that, a guy named Guy Raz, he's the name of the guy who hosts it. But you know, when you look at hosts of podcasts, it's always, to me, I think, important to have some sort of a story and a passion and a calling. Why are you doing this? You know, and I think that, you know, that always needs to work its way in a little bit to every interview throughout the podcast, so they get to know you, you know, as a host as well. So,
in a way, the only time, I mean, I do that a little bit just by just sharing generally, but the other podcasts that I like to do are the ones with just like my best friends that typically, if you're looking outside looking in, they're not going to be the ones that people go to look at, because first of all, why do I want to listen to two people talk about their old glory days and stuff like that?
Right.
One of my bosses made that joke the other day. I was like, I'm doing a podcast with one of my friends. He's like, who's going to want to listen to you 20-year-old kids talk about nothing? And I'm sitting here, I'm like, I understand that fully. But when I do it at the end of them, I feel like I'm so much closer to that best friend prior to doing that than ever. So like that alone is enough.
Yeah.
And like when it comes to like hopefully, you know, selling myself more and having my own story, when I talk to my high school friends, I mean, you're gonna learn some crap about me. Like something's gonna come up where it's gonna be like, okay, well, I wish you wouldn't have told that, but I'm not gonna cut it out, you know,
right.
Like I'm gonna leave it. And like with Adam, one of my buddies, we did one where we talked about how we hated each other pretty much from like 8th grade up until senior year. We only played basketball really together, but we like were the second, you know, we're always behind Spencer. So we were the two that were like there, and we'd always argue like who's better, blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, and that just put a wedge between us. And then like 3 years later out of high school, we're sitting there talking like we're best friends, and we have all these good memories of each other, but we also like both full on remember like, yeah, I didn't really like you.
Right.
And it was just so cool to have that 2-hour conversation. We're sitting there at the end of it like, we would have never done this if that thing wouldn't have been there, and we wouldn't have said we're going to do it this way, blah blah blah. It was cool.
Well, that is be an interesting podcast, is arch rivals, you know, people who never were friends, they jump on the podcast together and talk about it. But I think so let me ask you this: what's your goal with the podcast, with the you know, go while you can? Do you want to, you know, sell sponsorship? Do you want, you know, to create revenue so you can go do it? Is that the goal?
So this Go While You Can would be the show.
Yep.
Currently in Progress is the podcast, and like currently in progress, the main reason I started this was, if I'm going to make any content for myself, this was going to be the way I did it, because I don't have to show anything. It's very simple. I can record this with you, with people I actually like, know, comfortable, whatever.
Yep.
And then to put on YouTube, it's just the Currently in Progress. I have my little intro where I talk, and the only thing embarrassing is my voice, obviously. So like, you just deal with that, and that was the easiest content I knew I could make. And that's why I started this, because you got to start somewhere.
Sure.
And then the fact of the people that I did it with, I kind of knew I had connections, obviously, with my dad, and just knowing a lot of people in Beaverton and how like that can expand too. I knew that I could get at least for sure people that I thought were interesting.
Yep.
It'd be super easy. And honestly, that was the point at the beginning too. Like, no one's gonna watch this. So like, as long as I like it, then it doesn't really matter. That'll be what carries me through it. So but back to your point, money wise, more so it was just to do it. If I were to have enough revenue or stuff like that, I would definitely reinvest it. It would be the easiest decision to make.
Yeah.
It would be,
So when you get the van, you fix it up, and you hit the road. What's it look like? Like a couple weeks, a month, 6 months?
At that point, when I finally do it, I hope for it to be as long as possible. I have a couple other. So one of my other buddies was talking about bartending, and he bartends at like large events. He has like a company that they just hire him through.
Yeah.
So it'd be festivals, it would be like concerts. He got a PGA tour once. So I'm sitting there, if I can do that while also traveling to just satisfy it,
Yep.
you know, like if I can keep my savings and just, you know, be breaking even,
Yep.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Because if I'm living in the van, I'm already where I wanted to be.
Sure.
So like I'm good. But that's the plan. If I can be out there forever, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a business model and there's a way to have that, you know, covered if you have the right concept, you know, and the way I always look at stuff is every idea we have, every creative idea, the second question is, after you come up with the idea, it's, okay, how can we monetize this? You know, how can we create something that's so desirable that the audience likes so much that a sponsor could look at and say, I want to put our product, you know, behind this idea, this show, this podcast. I always think of what can we do and how can we position that to create revenue to make this happen. And that's really the next step, is start thinking about that. You know, what are some guests that you can line up that a sponsor could say, you know, I'd kick in $10,000 to be a part of that. How many podcasts? Is there 26 podcasts? Okay. And you're talking to these people. You're videoing it as well. You have video content. You're journaling along on the road, and you're all these places you're going. Now that's something that, you know, you could potentially get some backing.
Yeah.
And that's something that we could honestly help you with, you know, as far as from a Be Alive standpoint. I mean, that show that is Be Alive. I mean, that is the epitome of what Be Alive stands for, is doing something you love.
Yeah.
Hitting the road, you know, taking a leap of faith in following your passions in life. And that's kind of, you know, I think you're right on. I mean, you won't ever get this you can, but most people don't get a chance to have this opportunity again. At some point, you're gonna be married, probably. You're gonna have kids. You're gonna have, but the goal is to set your life up in your business life, your professional life, up so it's your passion.
Yeah.
And you know, then the rest of your life kind of falls into place and fits around that. So yeah, man, it's if it's something that that you really want to do, I would say as you start to build out the bus, I would document every part of it.
Yep.
You know, there's a couple guys in the hunting space. Sam Holt, I believe, is one of them. He built out a Ford conversion van, like it's a big Ford van, and he lifted it, put tires on it, just built it.
Yeah.
You know, built the hell out of it. And it's pretty sweet. And now he takes it around and he's built enough of an audience that, you know, because people really want to know how these conversions are happening.
Oh, yeah.
You know, how you do it, where you buy it. A lot of it's, you know, elbow grease and just coming up with concepts. And once it's an empty canvas on the inside. Mm-hmm. So you can create whatever environment you want that fits you, you know. So for you to set this up, to have a podcast room, to have a little setup where you can do all your editing there, whether it's video editing or post on your audio, for your podcasts, that's key. And I would say continue to develop out the concept of your podcast as soon as you can. Start to figure out, you know, how you want to be different, And I think there's real opportunity for it for sure.
For the
podcast.
For the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and content, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you're gonna be shooting content along the way. There's also a lot of opportunities there. So, yeah, actually we partnered up with a guy named Zach Shellhammer, and you should look him. He's the one that did our My Adventure Life podcast. He would go around and he interviewed. I think we only did 4 of them because it was, early on in Be Alive.
Yeah.
I think it was year 1 or 2 that we did it. So we were just trying to figure out the right path for our content. But Zach Shellhammer's an incredible photographer and videographer, and he's also an adventure guy. And he interviewed Marshall Miller, who's a he does a lot of sky or base jumping.
Yeah.
Russell Sturgis, he's another one. So he just found a way he had a network of people that he could interview, and we paid him pretty good money to go do that for 4 episodes. It was just 4 episodes. They basically sit on the back of his Jeep tailgate, or he'd open the doors and they'd sit there and he'd ask them. They're all on our website. You should kind of look at it to see kind of how we did it. But he did a really good job. But along with all that, for you would be all the content you shoot along the way. The photography, the journals, the product integration, if there's any products, that sponsors that you could integrate products with. There's just a lot of opportunities if you have that ambition to go do it.
Yeah, it would be
there, man.
There.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk a little bit more about the van, but that's the inside as of now.
Yeah.
So did
you buy it like that?
We painted it and then we put the kitchen in.
Oh, nice.
But everything else was pretty much there.
Yeah.
But the renovation plan will be this bathroom is going to be just the side.
Yep.
And it's going to have a toilet and bathroom right there. This side is going to be my desk and computer. Mm-hmm. My bed is that thing. It falls out the back.
Nice.
And then this setup right here I got to redo. And that's going to be where the studio is, like the seats and everything.
Yeah.
And then, I'm probably going to have to gut like everything, like take off the walls and everything and work the wiring. And I want to have like a setup up front to where like that's going the other way.
Oh yeah, that's sweet.
So that's the front. I'm gonna have like a hanging chair right there for any guests. And then figure that out. But
is that wood floor?
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Like nice hardwood floor.
Yeah, you can even put that on, on the ceilings or accent pieces and stuff. I mean, you can really dial
There's a lot. No, there's a lot I could do with this. Yeah. I'm very excited to. And then having a TV up front or whatever, and then I could, like, if I had the podcasting cameras going this way, I could have someone else on the computer in the back out of the way, and they can control it from there.
Yep.
And they could do whatever they wanted on the screen behind us, or I'd have it going here and then just the screen the other way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The other thing me and a work gal came up with the other day is I joke around a lot at work, and people generally think I'm pretty funny. So I always joke around with doing stand-up. And I was thinking about a way how I could do that in the van. Because all I do is think about, like, honestly, the monetization thing, I never thought of it that way, but all I do is think about what I can do out of the van.
Yeah.
I also thought about having a barista run out of the van, but I'm pretty sure I couldn't get a license to do that.
Just randomly stop somewhere.
And then pull up and have where is a picture?
But you could do it would be funny to pull up just random places and do a stand-up.
So I want to get
stage.
My bumper extended.
Yeah.
So then it would be like a 4-foot or 3-foot thing. And then if I could engineer something to where I could extend that even more.
Yeah.
Have a stage out the back, and then this is where my bed is, and it's kind of like a perfect rectangle.
Flips out.
Yeah, it flips out. But I would put something, like either have my dad or something, put some lettering there. That would be my backdrop to everything.
Yeah.
So the one joke we made is we were talking about doing like, the van would be a venue. Mm-hmm. And then we both stopped, looked at each other for a second, and we're like, it could be the Vanu.
Oh yeah,
so
there
that
you go.
would be the joke,
the
like the joke name of it. And it was like, if you want to like have the Vanu show up somewhere, like you would say it on social media or something.
Yep.
And if I got, and like, didn't have to do stuff myself. Like if I didn't want to bomb by myself, I could get other comedians to
Yeah.
be like, hey, this spot, comedian open mic night, come show up, blah, 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 and see what could happen, you know?
Yeah, no,
so that's
that'd be cool.
another like content thing that I was thinking about. And I thought that would be nuts because, I mean, this is in Utah, obviously, so I mean,
Yeah.
we're in the middle of nowhere. But I'll tell you right now, other than that car right there, there's probably 30 other cars over here.
Yeah.
Not saying that they're all going to be there at the same time as me, but like, how funny would that be if I pulled up and had like actual lights and everything coming up? Like, because you can go to the hardware and get
Yeah.
$20 really big lights, and I can do this at night whenever. And
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just another.
That's
gimmick
cool.
thought
I
of,
like I like that idea. You know, that's actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
That you could kind of set something up like that. But yeah, thinking about all the opportunities for you to, you know, kind of build a story around that bus, that van, you know, the Van-U. I
Yeah.
think that's pretty cool. Yeah. And again, don't be afraid, you know, building out these ideas and putting them on paper. And when you start actually doing them, there's no reason you can't.
Yeah.
Every you can do whatever you want, and that's the great part about it is, you know, probably before you started doing these podcasts, you'd never done it before.
No.
You know, you had no idea how to do
The
it.
one time I did it, and I joked with him, was with Brandon at the Jack Pine Tribune.
Yeah.
I told him he was the first person to ever get me into podcasting because I had to record something for Z93 for like a sports review.
Yeah.
And I did that, and he was like coaching me through it and stuff. And he's like, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm a 15-year-old kid, for sure hadn't hit puberty yet. And I'm like, you're about to put me on the radio, dude. Like, like what's gonna happen here? And he's like, no, you'll be fine. I'm like, okay, whatever. So it was super fun.
Yeah.
But going full circle with it, I told him, I was like, that was the first time I ever did it, and that was the only other time I ever did it.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But yeah, I've been just thinking about how I could do that. What other then there's always the fact of having a trailer, because I could pull a trailer behind.
Oh, yeah,
and
you could.
whatever that be.
Whatever you can put in there.
It could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
So that is one of the other options. And that bus I also took to California already, and I drove.
What year is it?
2.
Yeah.
127,000.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Propane underneath, generator. I want to get solar on the top, so then I don't have to worry about turning on the generator and everything's just going.
Yeah.
And if I'm out west for the vast majority of the time, it won't matter because it's never cloudy and
Right.
you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
So that would be sick. That's the plan. And like, not only, and like what you said too about like the work life being like the life period is also the point of this.
Yeah.
Because I would much rather be able to, if I could do this and get paid to do this, why would I ever not do that?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like,
For sure.
I get to sit here and talk to people and make content about things that I'm actually passionate about and then get paid for it. Like, seems pretty stupid not to try.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Yeah.
Now's the time.
Yep. So, since this is called Currently in Progress, we'll get back to you. I've done a lot with like I've done Brandon's podcast. I've
Yep.
done Woody's. I've done Scott Govitz, all these guys that you know. And obviously I've mentioned, or you've gotten mentioned in a lot of them. But let's go back to like what you were doing in college with Woody, because he told me a story about how he's like, you guys would get on him about not going to class, but you guys would also skip class to go film hunting.
Oh, yeah.
And how he's like, well, it was kind of perfect because, he skipped to go film hunting and ended up filming hunting for a living. So,
Yeah, right. It worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to call Woody Dr. Woodruff.
Yeah.
He's I think he had, I don't know, maybe 8 years of college for his bachelor's, but he was trying to figure it out. He found his lane, man. That's for sure. He's crushing it right now with land sales for Whitetail Properties. But yeah, I mean, it's the whole passion with the outdoors started literally on the Tobacco River. It was, we started filming each other hunting.
Yeah.
That was what we loved, is we loved to hunt. And back then, I mean, there's a guy named Dan Fitzgerald who was a Michigan guy. He was one of the first guys to really kind of break the mold. Just before outdoor TV, outdoor hunting videos had really started to roll out, VHS tapes. And Dan Fitzgerald had probably the best collection of hunting videos out there. And he had one a year he'd release. And back then you didn't buy them. I mean, I think it was like $100 to buy like an original VHS tape because it was there's such a big rental operation. Like you would go and rent VHS tapes. This is before DVDs. We go down to C&J's, which is now Big R's Pump and Pour, and we go usually right around. We'd shine. We'd go hit the back roads and Beaverton. We'd shine for deer, and right about mid-September, right kind of when school started, and we started to get the itch to watch some hunting, and there was no outdoor TV at the time. There's nothing. So we went down to C&J's, and he had the Profits had a really good collection of hunting VHS tapes. So, we'd run them out and we'd take them back to Shad's place and we'd watch them at Bob's, and we'd just get into it. And that's what kind of made us realize, like, hey, we could do this too. I mean, I always loved storytelling, and I always did it. Even before this, I'd always take a camera everywhere. It's just what I did. I took my parents' camera everywhere. I'd video stuff. I just loved the idea and the thought that whatever I shot would be documented forever. Mm-hmm. As long as the tape stayed intact, and down the road, my kids, my grandkids, they could see all these things that we used to do. I was just, for some reason, very fascinated by that. And so before it was even like a hunting angle, it was just I loved to do it. Mm-hmm. And then when it came to the hunting side, we were using, I think Alan Corey's dad had a VHS camera that we used for a little bit. You'd literally put the big VHS tapes and hit record, and then my parents had an 8mm camera, and we just started filming stuff. And then I think it was my senior year in high school, we bought a Hi8. Shad Woodruff, me, Jamie Corey, Chris George, and Alan Corey. We all went in and we went to ABC Warehouse, and we got you could kind of pay for, you get a loan or whatever. You could apply to get credit. So it was like $1,900 this Hi8 camera was. So we bought it there. We brought it back and we started filming everything. And it was 1997. I know that for sure. And I can't remember the exact date. First week of November, I think, was the first time we actually filmed a successful hunt. And I was running the camera, and this was I was a sophomore in college, and Shad was a junior. We were living in Mount Pleasant, and we got a farm on the right on the river there in town, and just out of town actually, and the Chip River. And it's like 250 acre farm. So we get down, it's getting maybe a half hour before sunset, and we got itchy. We got down out of the tree and we started stalking the edge of this cornfield, and we sneaking up, and we could see the top of this corn stalk tassel just kind of bouncing like this. And we're looking. And I'm kind of filming, but looking at the same time. Sure enough, it's a buck in there, and it kind of starts walking towards us. It was like 5 rows away. Shad shoots it, spins, runs right at me. I move out of the way. It just misses me, runs behind us in the woods and dies. And, got it all on video, and we were going crazy. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. So, I mean, that was like the hook. That hooked me too. And at the time, I was in the broadcast journalism, getting my broadcast journalism degree from CMU. Yep. So broadcasting and cinematic arts, a lot of production side, and then the journalism side for writing. And I'm like, that's what I'm doing. At that moment, like, I knew that the school I was going to I could get a degree, and I have a camera, so it didn't take long. We stepped it up, got a better camera. It was like a $5,000, actually about a $6,000 camera called the XL1, Canon XL1. We were the first. I got on a list. I was the first person in Michigan to get this camera, and to me, this camera really changed outdoor television, in my opinion. It made it affordable for somebody who had a passion in the outdoors to buy that camera. You could buy mini DV tapes for about $4 or $5 a piece. And it wasn't quite affordable yet from the editing standpoint, because nonlinear editing was just starting. So nonlinear is computer-based editing. Before it was just cuts only tape-based editing.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the stuff that was shot in the early days, the ESPN outdoor stuff in the mid to late 90s, that was all like Betacam. And those cameras are, there was $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 cameras. The tapes are expensive. The editing systems they used were really expensive. So it was out of the question to be able to just start a business using Betacam. It just didn't make sense. But the mini DV camera kind of gave a pathway to somebody like me that was young, that had a passion for it, that wanted to have a career in the outdoors, telling stories on the production side, and that camera was it. So myself, Jamie Corey, Alan Corey, and Shad, we pitched in. We actually got a loan from Comerica Bank in Beaverton, and it was Mrs. Schwartzmiller gave us the loan. There's no reason for her to give us this loan. We had no income. We were college students. I think a lot of it had to do with she knew who our parents were. Yeah. So they gave us a loan. It was like $6,000, and we made a payment. It was like $300 a month for 5 years or whatever the heck it was. And it seemed like we always had trouble finding money to pay it each month. But in the end, it was a goal, kind of all of our goals to do it. And I was kind of the one that took it to the next level. And Shad was in the industry for quite a while as well, doing stuff for A-Way and Greg Abbas. But it's just something like I knew I wanted to start a business and a career in the outdoors, and started a TV show on at CMU called Shalami Outdoors. And that was kind of our group that Shad, Alan, Jamie, Chris, and myself, we called ourselves the Shalamies. That was the name, the group that we were. So Shalami Outdoors was the name of the show that I edited and shot and produced, and it would have been 99 and 2000 at CMU on Moore Hall Television. And at CMU there's a station dedicated to, it's MHTV channel 34. It's dedicated to all the content that can be shot and produced by students. Yeah. So they let you use it. And they have a radio station too. And so I produced the show, and it was a hunting show, and a lot of people looked at me kind of sideways. And for years I'd been writing articles and projects for my journalism classes that were all hunting based.
Yeah, so you could reuse them.
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah, but that's what I was interested in. And all my professors, none of them really understood. They said, well, it's nice that you're writing about the outdoors, but you need to write about something that's gonna fit in your career path. I said, but this is my career path. Yeah. And they didn't understand that there was a big world out there that was outdoor, the outdoor industry, and it was just kind of booming. It wasn't booming, it was starting. And the television really kicked off the boom in the outdoor industry, and TV was the catalyst of it all. But I would bring in magazines, and I'd like 10 magazines that were all outdoor hunting and fishing magazines, and I'd show them. I'd say, listen, this is when I'm writing this, I imagine that I'm writing it for this magazine or this magazine. And slowly they kind of got familiar with, okay, because I wore them out about it. I did not like being told that I couldn't write for the outdoors, because that's what I'm doing. So anyway,
so you were the only one that did anything for that show? Like, you were the sole...
There was a host, Jason Newmer, and he graduated, I think, in 2000 with me from CMU, and he now lives in Detroit and is still in the... I haven't talked to him for probably 20 years, honestly. But you had to have two hosts of the show. Yeah. So Jason Newmer, he had no idea what hunting was at all. He was the other guy that was hosting the show, and it was me. He didn't hunt at all. I was using all footage that me and the guys have shot shot over the last several years. So I would use that footage for the episodes. And so I'd edit it together. So that first year, I think the Chalami Outdoors won 4 awards. 4 of the 5 awards for MHTV, we won it. And it was like at that point, it clicked to me. It's like, okay, I can tell these stories. I can shoot it. Maybe I'm going to keep pushing. It gave me the confidence.
Who was the judges on those? Were other professors or
other professors?
Yeah.
Yep.
See, isn't that?
Yeah, it was. It was wild. Yeah, the professors actually looked at that, and outside of the fact that we're hunting and fishing, it's not like we were in New York City. I mean, we were in Isabella County.
Yeah,
this hunting.
But that's what's gonna be good there.
100% farmer. I mean, that's the heart of the Midwest, really. When you get outside of town.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool, pretty satisfying. I didn't expect it at all, to be honest with you. They kept reading our name off. I'm like, what? This is cool, and all these kids that are doing like these crazy, like, these music shows or cooking shows, and the shows that kids do in college, and they're like, why? How in the heck is that hick
winning,
beating us? Yeah. And with a hunting show, like, I don't even believe in that. I mean, that's kind of like the looks that I could see. But then, there's a lot of professors that knew that how much I loved it, that were, you could kind of see they were kind of proud, the fact that, you're seeing a student kind of take it to the next level. And, that's, again, that gave me the confidence to kind of, start the company.
Well, if it's a newer type of like TV at the time, you are willing to risk doing something that no one else could, and then if you even remotely do it all good at that, like starting anything, it's gonna be positive, because it's like, if no one does this and you're doing it remotely good, it's gonna be like, oh yeah, well, this could be something, like, let's look at this more, like, let's see what we can do. That's cool.
For sure.
How did that lead into, because I know you did, so the 2 other ones I wanted to talk about was the Red Rave.
Yep.
I don't know when you did, like, because that would have been later.
So it was 2001, 2002 was Red Rave. So right when I graduated college in 2000 and literally started the company, Jack Pine Productions at the time is what the name of the company was. And that's what I started while I was in college. So I was editing my senior year, the last part of my senior year. And through my graduation, I was editing A-Way Outdoors, Greg Abbas's TV show, Beaverton guy. And, I put this pilot together, and I shot it with Greg, shot stuff with Greg, used some of his hunts, because he filmed his hunts, and put it together and sent it to Outdoor Channel, and sure enough, they greenlit it. So I was probably 22 years old at the time, editing and producing, a show for Outdoor Channel. I didn't know, from a format standpoint, I was learning all this, and I was editing it in a spare bedroom of our apartment that Darcy and I had in Mount Pleasant at the time. So, it was crazy when I think back to, like, I had a 16 gigabyte hard drive. That's all I had. And so it was, I had to ingest the footage that I knew I was going to use and edit a portion of the story together, the first half of the episode, and I'd have to run that to a master tape and then do the second half and run. It was so crazy because I couldn't afford, I think the next, it was like 128 gig hard drive was like the next one they offered, and it was like thousands of dollars, like $5,000. There's no way I could afford it. And I was editing at the time on a system called Casablanca. It was a Casablanca editor, and it wasn't nonlinear. Nonlinear, you buy a Mac, you get Final Cut Pro, and I wasn't there yet. So the first really big project I had was Red Rave when I started the company, and we started shooting that in December of 2001, and that kind of went into 2002 all the way up through March Madness. And I knew that year would be a special year. We had a lot of returning guys coming back, seniors that were, good players. We had a good contingent of like juniors and sophomores that were contributing. And I mean, I think our starting 5 averaged like 6'4" or 6'5" in a Jack Pine conference that, isn't known for, a lot of big kids. So I knew we'd have a chance to go undefeated in the Jack Pine. And then moving down the road, was like, Breslin, that was the goal. It's like, I wanted to document the first Beaverton team to go to Breslin Center for the semis, and got all the way through the season, and it was a great year. I filmed, I think, almost every game, and Woody helped me on the shooting of that. He shot with me on the big games. We shot 2 cameras. I'd mic up Roy, and I'd always set my audio levels to really low, and he'd still blow them out. He'd be yelling at people, and it was awesome. I still have. I mean, I think that's probably, again, going back to the gold that you discover along the way is having Roy mic'd up live for the whole playoff run that year, and only a handful of that, just a little bit of that has made the film.
But
there's stuff in the library that's just like gold, and so going back into that stuff, and I'd always thought about doing a remaster it, do a new cut of the story, with more interviews now looking back about what it was, and there's just some ideas that I have that not are just about Red Rave, but about Beaverton basketball in general, as a whole documentary that I'd really be interested in. I've been really thinking about it and writing stuff down for a couple years. Really would love to follow Roy on his last season, but who the hell knows when that's gonna be?
You don't know when that's
I mean,
he'll do it, and then next year be like, oh, I'm back at it.
Yeah, or he just goes through and just retires at the end of the year, and you don't have a chance to do it. So I really need to figure that out, because I want to document that last season, and he's the type of guy that wouldn't want all the accolades and praise to let people know. You know, he would just bow out probably and retire, but I can't see him doing that. But anyway, that would kind of work into the Beaverton documentary, Beaverton basketball documentary, the history of, the deep history of where it started, and, moving all the way up through, and talking about the teams and the traditions and the people.
Crazy records, the fact that he coached 3 generations.
3 generations,
Like, he coached a granddad and a grandkid. Mm-hmm. Like, that was nuts.
Crazy. Crazy.
And then I helped him coach. It would have been for my internship for Central. It would have been Trent, Cameron, Carson's year.
Yep.
And I tell you what, going to that practice every day, like, it felt just like back when my old practices.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like, this starting 5 is like, I can guard any one of you, and you're probably going to get a bucket on me. Like, they were all that good.
Right.
And it was nuts. It was so cool to watch, and there was a lot of things that you would learn from kids, at least, as they go along. One thing I've always wanted to tell them is that there was one day we were at practice, and I always practiced with him, because I would just guard Trent.
Yeah.
Because no one there is going to guard Trent.
Yeah.
He's a grown man at the time. And speaking of that, there was one day, and it was playoff time, and these kids, if you know them, would always just back talk, and all regular seasons, just like, we're good enough to just be like, oh, we're here, like, we got it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, you are, but someone's going to be good enough to do that one day. And they had McBain that week. Mm-hmm. Trent drove on me. I'm going to say he stepped on my foot, but I don't know if he did or not, and just sent me flying.
Yeah.
And completely easy layup. Never in my life would I look up at Carson and Cameron and Brady thinking that I wasn't about to get roasted.
Yeah.
All 3 of them stared at me stone cold as if I didn't get up fast enough. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my God, free pass. I got up, guarded Trent again, didn't say a word. I was like, where was this all season, guys?
Yeah.
Like, it was nuts. It was cool to see them do it finally.
Yeah.
But it was, it would have been way better to
Nobody lost to McBain, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that was they've been our kind of our Comstock Park, if you will, in the last. We run up against McBain.
My year.
You got Flint Beecher.
Yep.
Carter's year.
Yep. And the guy he played against dropped like 40 on him, and he went to play at Saginaw.
Yeah.
And that was also cool, because I talked to Carter about that after, and he's like, yeah, that game sucked, but guess what? I played him in college. First time, he scored 6 points on me, and I had 2 blocks.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's exactly what Carter Johnston would tell me the next time he played that kid. And I was like, that's perfect. I was like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And then just to like back to Red Rave, we would always, because we were like, we had the perfect record too, and I think
Were you a water boy for Red Rave or no?
I was not.
How old were you then?
That would have been 2002. You said
1 and 2.
I would have been 4.
Yeah, so you.
I mean, yeah,
you were pooping
probably,
your pants still.
It was
basically.
probably Grant.
Yeah.
Grant would have been.
Yeah, Grant
Because
was
I
there.
remember when I was water boy, it was Leduc, Kevin Leduc, Broca. Those were the first guys I remember, and then like Newman and Chip and all them.
Yeah.
That was but yeah, and we would always compare ourselves to them, and it was funny because Spencer would tell. I mean, we all knew, but like you said, they all averaged 6'4". We averaged 6 foot, and I was like, first of all, we know we wouldn't have really had a chance because not only did they play like we played, but they were 8 inches taller across the board.
They were a special team, man.
Yeah.
It really sucked to see them lose to Comstock Park. And there's a few things that could have went right in that game that didn't go right, and you think back to what could have been, because Comstock ended up going to the finals that year, and but really though, just a team from the Jack Pine Conference, from a community to make it to the Breslin is the championship.
Oh yeah.
That is the goal. That is the championship. Everything after that's just a bonus.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I love to see in those tournaments is, obviously I love to see the public schools do well. I love to see the small time schools do well. It doesn't always work that way. I mean, you have a handful of boys to choose from, and you have maybe 20 kids in the school that are athletic enough to help a team, with between 2 grades, and it's that's why it's so special when it happens, like Red Rave or like when you guys made your runs, and that is why the community gets behind them, because they know it's a unique thing. And I have a son now playing for Dow High, and it's not the same. Right now it's not. Culture could change, but after the games, you'd have to shut lights off and kick people off the court.
Oh yeah.
And that's the big difference between small time community basketball, and a basketball in a school that has 8 sports going on at the same time. Mm-hmm. It is only Beaverton basketball during the winter.
Yeah.
That's the destination, that is the entertainment, and that is where people come together to talk, to communicate, to see each other, and that's what you do on Friday nights. And I realize now how special it is to come from a school that has a tradition so rich. Yeah. And you have characters that are still there. You have these players that still come. And that's why it's so special.
They're
sitting in the crowd. They come there and they want to see the team do well, and they want to
see Roy be theatric.
They do.
They want to see the beaver slide.
They want to see it. It's all those traditions. It's the red coat. It's the red carpet. Mm-hmm. It's all those things that, over time has become the Beaver Shuffle. It's all those things that have become, what Beaverton is known for, but also they're known for winning more than anything else. Yeah. And that's what, you're always proud of that. When you say you're from Beaverton, you always say, oh, the BT and Beaverton basketball and Roy Johnston. Those are the things that people talk about when you say you're from Beaverton. So
obviously you want to bring that to like your remaster, and that would be cool. And the fact that you said the BT, that's getting renovated, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's a big secret. Like no one knows what it looks like in there. I hope it looks good.
Yeah, I heard it's like a big U-bar now, and they split everything like nice down the middle and everything. So
that's part of my thing too. Is like at the BT, maybe it's dialed in, but for me, you have all this sports history and just the history of Beaverton, the town, even the Jack Pine Conference. Not just Beaverton folks come to the BT.
Oh yeah,
it's Harrison, Clare, Coleman, Gladwin. The Jack Pine Conference really supports that place, and everyone's swinging through, going up north on Friday nights and coming back. They stop at the BT. So for me, I would love to see just kind of a tribute to Jack Pine sports, girls champions, guys champions, standouts from the conference. Beaverton obviously more heavy, but just to acknowledge, what makes this area special, and you know, that to me, I've always, you know, that's what I would do with the inside of that place, and I would make it literally. You come in and you want people to stand and look at the wall, you know, and eat their burrito. You know, I mean, that's the goal.
The burrito is. I went and trained my senior year at Athletic Republic in Midland Community Center, and there's a guy in there. One of them was from Coleman. The other one was from like Detroit, and they were talking. The Coleman guy obviously knew. He's like, yeah, well, we know not to order the burrito because we'll never finish it. And then the guy looked at him, the guy from Detroit, he's like, oh, really? Like, how big could it really be? They went there the next time before I went back and trained. First thing that guy said to me, he's like, halfway. And I was like,
well, that's the small. Did you get the large?
Yeah, I was like, and then, I think that's what I told him. And he was like, no way. And I was like, yeah, you probably got the small there,
it's
guy.
Freaking giant, man. Yeah. It's the size of this thing, man. Yeah. It's like a loaf of bread.
But that tradition, though, is for sure, like, the fact, like, after the game, after they shut the lights off, I remember back when the BT was like, open, and you would go there. So it would be Woody, me, it would be the Johnstons, it would be Roy, and we'd all sit there, and Woody would do the classic, like, hey, if I get this, are you guys going to eat some? And then it's like, yes, Woody, you don't even have to ask. Like, we're going to eat your food.
Yeah, he's going to get the sampler platter, too, and the mushrooms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's every time, and he pretends like he doesn't do it every time.
Oh, it's every time. Yeah.
Oh, man. But yeah, and then like that'd be cool if you did that remaster. Yeah. Let me know because I will definitely help out. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to do it. I mean, it needs to happen. I think, you know, really it'd be a destination. I'd want to put it. I mean, you can always put stuff on YouTube, but I'd love to find someone to run it to really, you know,
give it its justice.
Yeah. So anyway, that'd be fun.
Yeah. So you kind of said it in there, but you were saying that you were kind of like writing about that, or you were thinking about ideas for that remaster for a long time. When it comes to like anything you do, really, like how long does it take to like, you know, figure out?
Yeah.
Because I've been thinking about the van alone. The fact of me buying the van took me about a year of talking.
Yeah.
So then once I got that, I was about a year of talking about I mean, we're still talking about that until you know, we're gonna be talking about that for 5 years until I go and do it. But if I'm already there talking about it, like plans that big take a while to figure out. Like, how is that your process when
things take time. I mean, a lot of what we do, I don't have a chance to really have these little pet projects that, you know, most of what we do, we wrap a sponsor into it, you know, whether it's Winchester or you know, Cabela's or, you know, Bass Pro Shops or, you know, any of our Buck Knives, any of our brands that we are loyal to and have been part of. Usually we do it and we tie dollar to it to make it possible because that's what we do. Yeah. But I do have these, you know, these side projects. I've always wanted to do a documentary on deer camp. You know, deer camps throughout Michigan, Lower Peninsula, Upper Peninsula, that just have so much history in them.
Yeah.
And follow them, and it'd probably be opening days for 4 or 5 years. You know, that I'd have, you know, go document stories with these deer camps and just the tradition that November 15th has in our state.
Yeah.
You know, I've always wanted to do that, and I've always wanted to write a book about that. You know, photography in these old camps, you know, utilizing their old pictures, and just, you know, when you open it, you want to just feel like this is what we do too. You know, you want to be taken to that time because it's a special time in Michigan. But there's also a documentary that I want to do. I hope no one does it. I want to do it on the Detroit Lions and told from the fans and the misery of if you look at the most unlucky franchise, there's nothing as terrible as the Lions franchise, but it's almost to the point where it's like who we
People
are.
love it for it.
It's
Yeah.
it's like who we are. But if you look at all the things that have stacked up against on the Detroit Lions over the last 50 years, since they won this, it wasn't the Super Bowl, since the NFL championship in like 51 or 53 or whatever, that's the last time they did anything. But moving all the way through there, all the crazy things that have happened to them, all the terrible calls, all the bad draft picks, all the weird things that the ownership, the fans, there's so many crazy stories that have happened. In Detroit is just a town that deserves a good football team, and I don't know if it's ever going to happen. So every time I'll see these unique stories about the Detroit Lions and the players and the fans, and I'll kind of jot them down. So that's another one I'd love to do is a Lions documentary. And what I would love to do is to have it and do it and have it ready when they're actually a really good have a good season.
Yeah.
So like if they're making a run in the playoffs, to have it ready to then almost
if you shove it in their face right at that perfect time, then they're like, oh well, this is the only time we can have this.
Yeah. So anyway,
Okay, yeah.
it's kind of like the when Jordan's documentary kind of popped right at the start of the pandemic. I mean, it couldn't have been a more perfect time for that to launch because everybody watched it. But yeah, I mean, those are just the projects. I feel like if I have an idea, creative idea, we have partners that I can pitch those ideas to get them made, and we'll integrate their products, of course, in their brand within the story. But that gives me a chance to kind of scratch the itch of the creative itch. But, the Deer Camp documentary / coffee book, the Beaverton basketball documentary. I mean, those are things that I think about a lot. It's just like finding time.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
Yeah. That's the finding time is always the issue with everything,
Yeah.
because you never have enough of it.
No, you can't ever get it back.
No, that's the every day. Pretty much, I get out of work at like 8 to 5, and I'm sitting here. I'm like, what can I do slightly today that will do anything? I mean, even if it's a little, at least a little bit closer to whatever it is, and I don't know. There's a lot of things. I do a lot of things, but it also means I'm not getting that much closer. There's a whole another level that I could be once I get in the van or once I have 100% time dedicated to it. It's oh my God, these things are way more foreseeable in the future if I had that. And it would, that's where we're headed now. I can't wait.
Yeah, no, it's we're actually there's a lot of podcast stuff that we're looking to do down the road with some of our partners. So I think that's part of it too. If you want to get into this world, learn as much as you can about it. You don't need a degree to work in this space.
Yeah.
A lot of people we hire do not have production degrees. They're just go-getters, and they've it's technology, right? I mean, if you can tell a story and you understand technology, you can work for us. We can work with you. We can work on projects, and that's the great part about it is you don't need a degree like I got in broadcast journalism. I learned a lot of stuff to be in broadcasting as far as if I wanted to be in the news, I always made sure my mind was around, okay, I'm going to run a business. I probably should have had a business degree as well as a production degree, or just, I learned enough on the side of production and got my business degree, because in the end, I mean, that's the toughest part about it. It's not telling the stories. That comes naturally.
Yeah.
It's running a business, and that's what when Rusted Rooster started, that's really what the catalyst was getting in Chris and Casey and myself, so we could all focus on different parts of the business.
Yeah. So that's when did Dropped happen then? Was that?
It was. We shot that. Yeah, we shot that. in 2011 that we shot that, and it ran the late December, early January of that same year. So now we're in the 10-year anniversary of Dropped. So
Yeah.
it's 10 years since we did our first one. This year we haven't done a Dropped in 2.5 years, almost 3. This year we're going back to the original river that we shot the first season on. So, and I haven't shot a Drop for 3 years, so I'm going back, and I'm shooting with another one of the shooters that was with us for season 2 and 3 and 4. So we're going back there, and it's
Yeah.
cool because I can still remember. In detail, like, because I shot it and edited it, and I can remember in detail every turn of that river. And it was a 110-mile river, and I swear to God, I can remember it vividly. And it's like, we just talked about this honestly yesterday, is capturing the magic of that first season. And we've always tried to find it. We've always been chasing that first season, and we'll probably never recapture the true magic of that first year because we were doing it for the first time.
Yeah.
And we were experiencing it. And I think that's why people love that first season so much, because the camera, seeing it through Chris and Casey's eyes, but also through camera person's eyes, we were documenting that type of story for the very first time. So it was just a really raw, honest way to capture a story in a remote location, and we'd never done a DIY hunt for a month before.
Yeah.
And that was 1 month that we were out there. And
So how does that work fully? Like, they like the brothers, they just whatever they have on them is all they get, and then do you, like, cameramen, do you guys get extra stuff, or do you just
we all do it the same way?
Yeah.
And I think for us, and this is the way I feel, and when we went out there the first time, we brought 0 provisions, none. And we still to this day don't bring provisions out with us. So we've got emergency food in case we need it. But that sits in a Pelican case, and it's like, you open it and there's, some Mountain House there if you need it. And that's only in like dire situations.
Yeah.
But usually we're in game-rich environments where the rivers are flush full of fish. You've got caribou and moose and bear that you can shoot and eat. And there's berries all over the place, and there's plants that you can eat. But when you go out there, we all run on the same plan. When they eat, we eat. If they don't catch fish, we don't catch fish. So like we're starving. And so when we shoot a caribou, or when when the guys catch and off camera too, when we'll catch fish too.
Yeah.
You can't film all the time. There's some time that you're like, put down the camera, like, God, we got so much today with great stories. Give me that fly rod, man. I'm going to catch some grayling, and that's the stuff that you don't get to see, behind the scenes, that we all, they're group decisions too. There's never just, this is what we're doing. It's like, we're making the decision together as a group, because regardless if they're the hosts of the show or not, of course they're very knowledgeable about everything. But for us as a group, everybody that goes on that hunt, we're all good woodsmen. We all understand how to survive. So Chris and Casey are the best at it because they've done it the most. They're very good at it. But it's a group decision because all our lives are at risk, and we all know how to survive in the woods. So it's a group decision for sure. If we go up this mountain, or if we take this river, or whatever we do, it's kind of a group. Yeah, that's good. Let's go. Let's go. But yeah, I mean, we lose basically a pound a day out there. So if we're out there for 30 days, we'll come back 30 pounds lighter. It's a pound a day, and
just because of the less food, and then how much you're working.
Yeah, you're
and
moving,
how much you're traveling.
You're moving, and every day you're busting your butt. But I think more than anything, I remember the first year we did it when we were in the Brooks Range, and it was like day 9, and I'm like, man, I don't feel good. Like, it was weird. Like, I'd never felt like that before. Heart was beating really heavy. I was sweating. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it kind of hit me. It's like, I haven't had carbs. I haven't had sugar. I hadn't had anything outside of meat and berries and fish in like 10 days. It was like my body was like getting all the toxic, all the sugar, all the things that your body kind of becomes addicted to was gone. And it was like, I literally remember it was like a light switch. Like 3 hours later, it was gone. And I'd never felt better in my life. Like, when you're out there, you don't need much food anymore.
Yeah.
Your stomach shrinks to the point where, a couple pieces of meat, some fish, and some berries, that's really all you need in a day. And you don't really get hungry. And of course, at night, you sit there and you talk about pizza and wings and, you can't wait to get back. We're going to crush a beer. Those are the things you talk about. But when you're out there, it's like your senses become so sharp because everything around you at any moment, a predator could kill you.
Yeah.
And it's in the back of your mind. You walk by willows that are over your head, you're thinking, well, if I startle a sow and she's got 2 cubs, there's a chance I'm going to pull out this 44 mag and I'll have to use it. And you don't want to do that, and so you're super cautious. Everywhere you go, you never get tunnel vision and you look down at your feet. You're always scanning. You're always listening. You're always, even at night, you're listening and outside your tent, like, you wake up, you hear anything outside, and everyone opens their eyes.
Yeah.
And we've had bears outside of our tent. They've been sniffing at the base of it. We've had bears charge us, and it happens. But, it's weird. We had a bear charge us in season 2, and we were up in, or actually it was season 3. We were on the western side of Alaska, and we were inland a little bit, and we saw there's three cubs and a sow that were up on this tundra up on the bank.
Yeah.
And they were working their way down to the river, and we were going downriver. We just had gotten from a lake into the actual river that we're going to float for the whole trip. And we were about 2 miles in, and there were silver salmon, they're really red at the time. They were going everywhere, and they were down eating out of the river. So they were eating blueberries up top, and they worked their way down to this river, and we had to pass them. So we had 2 rafts filled with gear and stuff, and it was about knee highs, all thigh high maybe at the most. This river was, because it was just starting. We're at the headwaters, and we were walking our rafts, and there were willows real high on each side of the bank, close to the bank, because that's where the water was, and then it would kind of taper off into the tundra after that, open ground. But we knew that she was heading down to this, and we'd have to cross her at some point. So we started to get pretty nervous, like, we have to go past her.
Yeah,
we know
so
they're there.
it's
She's
inevitable.
got cubs, and she was huge. And so they get down in there, and we could see she went back in this oxbow, and these oxbows are like little backwater creeks, and they call them oxbows, and they push the salmon up in these oxbows, and they kind of try to beach them so they can get them and they can eat them easy. Well, 3 of the cubs, one of them stayed with Mama, and 2 of them came right upriver towards us, and at that point we're like, oh boy, something's gonna happen here. And I'm filming everything, and then one of the cubs just started going, rah, rah, rah. She one of them saw us. We're like, oh boy. And they kind of went up on the bank and ran, and the big sow was still in an oxbow. You could see her, she kind of went like this. You could see her head, and she looked at us, and we had the rafts kind of in front of us crosswise, so she would have to come through the rafts to get to us. And we all, Chris and Casey had, Casey had a rifle, Chris had his 10 millimeter, I had my 44 mag, and the other cameraman had a 45, which is a worthless round out there. But anyway, he made him feel better. So, at any rate, this sow sees us for a second. I could see it. She looked like this, and she went back into the oxbow, and I could see it. I could imagine it kind of clicked to her, like, where are my cubs? I heard a cub crying and bawling, and what is that in the river? Because this river hadn't been man on it in 10 years.
Yeah.
This was kind of an experimental hunt for us. So then she came back like looking like, what was that? And she saw us, and she got up on her back legs, and she just started running at us, choo, 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 like this, and running. She probably
Like through the water and
she
everything?
started at 200 yards, 250, went to 150, 100 yards, 80 yards, about 50 yards. She kind of slowed down about 30 yards. She got up on her back legs, and we're like, who in the hell are you? What are you? She's, she's probably never seen a human before. So she kind of did one of these things and got down and ran up on that willow bank, and kind of, we'd hear her popping her teeth and up there. I was like, Jesus. So we brought everything to river left. She was river right. We got everything to river left, put our rafts in front of us. We had to go past her. So we started pulling our rafts past her, and, you're kind of scooting fast, and you're looking, and these willows are like literally over the edge of the water, and it's probably only 8 yards wide at that point, so 10 yards wide maybe. So it's a pretty tight river still. And we get past the point where we think she was, and then we look up and we see she kind of made her way up on the other side of the tundra, kind of up, going back up the other side.
Yeah.
So we scooted down, and we probably went 2 or 3 river miles down and set camp for the night. But that was the closest encounter we had from a charging bear. But it's funny, I could see, I was never none of us were really ever nervous, because you could see in her eyes, she wasn't mad. It wasn't like fury. It was like she was curious.
Yeah.
And it was looked like a lab. Like the face of a curious lab. Like, it wasn't, I'm gonna rip your head off. It's like, what in the heck are you guys? Mm-hmm. And she went up there, and it was weird. None of us really got nervous, but we had so long to digest her and understand what was going on. It's not like we went around the corner and she stood up and came and hit you. It's that. It wasn't like that. So that was season 3.
You guys had enough guns to be.
She wouldn't have got to us, but that's another thing. You
never
can't
want to do it.
No, because you can't, unless you have a guide. You can't get a brown bear tag or a grizzly tag in Alaska. You can get a black bear tag, but you have to have a guide to shoot a mountain goat, sheep, or a grizzly or a brown bear. Gotcha. So So and then the first thing you do if you kill a grizzly or a brown bear, you call the game warden. You say, this is what happened. They'll have to come there, they have to inspect it and do a report and a big old bunch of paperwork, and it's just nothing that you want to deal with.
Yeah.
No.
But that's cool that you got to experience it, and you're filming it, and that was, you obviously probably got it all on film.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's just more content that you guys.
More content. We still use it.
Yeah.
We still use it to this day. So Dropped really was the catalyst for Rusted Rooster to grow. We started Rusted Rooster and Dropped about literally at the same time. We thought Dropped was going to be so game changing in our space that we wanted a new Jack Pine Productions. I folded that. Chris and Casey and I merged together as we're all business partners. We started Rusted Rooster. We created the series of Dropped, and we thought they would work in conjunction to do just some incredible things for us. And it did. We're on season 8 of Dropped now. It's still the number 1 rated show every time we run it. It's number 1. People still it's dropped, and it just it hit people at the right time. It's us and Meat Eater came out at the same time. Actually, Meat Eater was on the Travel Channel for 2 years, I believe, before they came to Sportsman. Mm-hmm. And because he renamed his show Meat Eater once he got to Sportsman Channel. But it's kind of like that. Those 2 shows were part of the shift for storytelling in the hunting space, and we're really proud and happy to be a part of that shift, and that launched our Rusted Rooster production company, and then from that, the byproduct of that was our Hatch marketing group. So now, since we created this series, not just that. I mean, I was at the time I created Heartland Bowhunter, Pigman the series, a lot of these shows that are still going today. Some very popular ones that, you know, we're on the ground floor. You know, Jack Pine or Rack Focus Post is what the name of the house that when we did hunting television, it was Rack Focus Post was the name of the company at the time. But yeah, Dropped is really what kind of launched our production company.
Rusted
Rooster.
So, and then what else? Like, you guys did other stuff there other than obviously TV shows. You guys did like product commercials and stuff like that.
Yeah, we did.
Did that make up like your business?
You know, so we really had three different, you know, lanes. We had our original series, which was Backcountry Quests at the time. Then we rebranded it to Rival Wild. Then we rebranded that to Humanimal. So we had our whitetail hunting show and our survival show Dropped. Those were the two owned properties that we had. Then we had Hatch Marketing. So we did a lot of the marketing for companies in the hunting space. One of our bigger clients had Plano Synergy. They had tons of products, and then we had Faradyne, and Faradyne had Rage and Muzzy and Block Targets, and, you know, the Glendale Buck and all that stuff. So we did a lot of those. We built a lot of the graphics and the ads and the ad spending we would do for these companies, and then Rusted Rooster would then do the commercial work for them. We'd do any brand films that they had, and then I think one year, our biggest year, I think we did like 52 or 53 commercials for it's like every time I watched Outdoor Channel or Sportsman Channel, like there was a commercial that we did. It was just like that was a crazy year, and that was the peak at Rusted Rooster. I think we had probably 28 employees at the time. It was just nuts. It was crazy. You know, we were still really learning how to run a business. We were learning a lot of things, and you know, we were
at least
booming.
You had work to learn, though.
Yeah, looking at it now, if we knew what we knew now, and we were running Rooster back then, it would have been a lot more profitable for sure, and we'd have done things different. But I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, the culture we had was incredible. Like, I mean, that was probably some of the best times in my career were from basically 2013 to 2017-18 when Rooster was just booming.
Yeah.
You know, we bought the new building on Patrick Road, and we transformed that, and the whole is, you know, 9,000 square feet. We had editors and graphic designers and copywriters and producers and, you know, executives and account managers in every corner of that thing. And that was like, it was crazy. You'd walk in that building and it was like, wow, what is happening here? Because shows are being edited here, commercials here, copy for this ad campaigns happen here, graphic design for all the new, you know, Muzzy and Rage, Broadhead, you know, for next year's being done here. We're building catalogs here. Yeah, I mean, we had client meetings. It was crazy.
The one time I went there was to pick up that camera in high school to do the our like version of the Red Rave, which Battle of the Fans. Yeah. And when I went in there, I went in and said, "Hey, I'm just here to pick some stuff up." And they took me down like a hallway, and like literally, they're like, "Oh yeah, that guy's working on this," and he's just a computer, him in there, and just going to town. I'm sitting there like, and then I walk past. There's like another one with like 3 dudes in it. I'm like, well, how many people are in this building right now? And I was like, I saw like 4 cars out front. Like, where are all these people coming from? And it just kept swinging around. And then we went into the supply closet. Yeah. And it was literally just like the size of my bedroom. Yeah. And it was just nothing but cameras. And there's a bag. Here you go. Yeah. Walked out. Yeah. And I was like, that was a wild place. And then on the way out, Brandon said hi to me, and he was like, "Oh, do you even remember me?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I worked with you like literally 6 months ago."
Yeah.
I was like, I know who you are." And he's like, "Oh yeah, like I'm here now." I'm like, "Yeah, that's like seems on par on what you did before." And he's like, "Yeah, no, this is great." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And then on my way to go film some basketball.
Yeah.
It was nuts. It was so cool. Just and like the opening, I'm pretty sure you had like a big old piano or something, and then like the staircase in the back, and it was cool. It was
Yeah, Brandon worked. We brought him on. I think he worked with us for 3 years. And the great part about Brandon is obviously he's one of my best friends, but also, you know, he's an incredible songwriter and storyteller. And so we'd write original music for all of our, you know, TV shows.
So you never told me your own music.
Oh yeah,
yeah, we never. Yeah.
No, he's probably one of the best songwriters. It's an incredible storyteller. But so that was another thing that we did that was extremely unique. Is, you know, we wrote music designed around our stories. So for Dropped, you know, we would write music. Original score for that season based on what happened along the way. So if we were struggling, you know, Brandon would write a song that fit that, and we would have original music through the whole season. And that's something that kind of separated us at the time. Was, you know, we were really the first series to use lyrical music the right way. And I'll never forget, we were pulling an all-nighter because it was we got back from Dropped in late September. It took probably a month to organize the footage, to folder it out and get it rolling. So, you know, it's the 1st of November, and obviously it's the rut, so I'm not going to be sitting and editing the whole November. So it was like first week of December, sneaking up on Christmas, and the network needs the first episode by like December 15th or something like that. So it's December 10th, and I've been in the edit bay now. Basically, I've got a diaper on because I'm like, you know, in the edit bay. It's the first episode. We're trying to come together and figure out what is the thing, what's the form. We shot it awesome. I mean, it was a uniquely shot. But what is the musical element that we're going to use to kind of make this different? Mm-hmm. And we had a subscription to a music service, and they had all this music called it was a group called Hella Good Records, and it was a bunch of artists that had put their music in, and through I can't remember, Nonstop Music maybe was who we used. But it was like artists that have their real music in there. And it was the first time that I really listened to music, and Dropped was a great example of a series that we could use music that was written with lyrics in it that fit, because it just had that feel to it. So the first segment was done. I put it together. Actually, the first episode was done. I went back to the first segment. I'm editing it, trying to figure out, it might have been second segment at the time, what's going to set this off. So I put in a lyrical song, and we watched the first time without the music, without the lyrics, and it was like, nah, that's all right. It's like, man, there's got to be something different. So I found this lyrical song, I put it in there, and it was the first time that the plane dropped us in, and that when the plane left for the first time, and we're on that gravel bar and watching it go into the Brooks Range, and knowing that it's not going to come back for 30 days, and we have to make it 110 miles down this river alive, and it's going to pick us up. And when it picks us up, we're going to have an incredible story to tell. Well, when that went off, and I put this, I still remember the song. You know, I put it in there, and Chris and Casey and I watched it, and we literally cried. It was like that music, that song, those lyrics hit just right. Like that was the secret sauce that was missing. Mm-hmm. And from then on, moving forward, Dropped has been an outlet for us to use lyrical music the right way, not forcing it in there, but using it the right way. And then that's when we started to write original music with Brandon for Dropped.
For that.
Yeah. Yep.
That's cool. Like, there's another joking show, like a long time ago, me and my buddy came up with, and it was called Photosynthesis. And it was about a dude that talks to plants, and it's just like a whole thing. But there was a something that came up. There was a new album that this guy wrote, and I literally listened to it, and I was like, oh my god, the like opening line was exactly what I thought of when I thought of that show, when I was like wanting to write that show.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, that's weird. And then you listen to more parts of this like album, and you're like, oh well, that's like, you know, what episode 4 would be about. That's what episode, you know what I mean? And then you can break it down like that. It's like, oh my god. Like the fact that this fits so well, like why, and like you said, why wouldn't you just write your own stuff? Because then if there's nothing that fits, like something could.
Oh, yeah.
There's obviously something that could fit.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You could write it.
For sure.
Yeah, that's cool. And I also, right before I went on that trip, the first time I went on the van trip, I planned it to be longer. And I thought I had very large aspirations. It wasn't what it turned out to be exactly. But I had my guitar with me the entire time. I didn't even know how to play guitar. I was just like, if I stay out long enough, maybe I'll learn.
Maybe I'll figure it out. There's YouTube now. You can figure that stuff out.
So that was another, also part of the venue was like not just comedy, but like if I could sing or I had a band or any sort of thing like that.
Or find a local musician to use the venue.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on in.
So that was also the other thing. And like singing has always been cool. I had another guy on the podcast. He played basketball with Spencer back at mid.
Yeah.
There's been a couple guys that have actually started from that team that like started like making music.
Yeah.
And I went over and hung out with that dude. His name's Dre. And he was like, he had a couple songs he showed me. I was like, how? I was like, these are actually like good. Like people always show you music like that, and it's like, you know, like okay, cool, like, you know, you just don't want to hurt their feelings or anything. But like his songs, I was like, I listened to that one like in the car, like occasionally, like I will remember and just play that.
Yeah.
And so me and him have been writing music like that too. So I was like, that's so freaking cool to be able to sit there and like have another outlet and then also be able to use it in what you already do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For
It's
sure.
And it's way more sentimental. Like you can, obviously, like you said, you can make it fit to that specific thing.
Oh my God,
rather than just making it up and then making something else fit it.
Yeah. No, it's a great, it's a great creative opportunity for a storyteller to be able to just continue to put their fingerprints all over a project, and that's just what I think we love about just layering, continue to layer, your to put your spin on a story, and I think that's what I love about it is it's complete creative opportunity, and it never gets old.
Yeah,
never gets old.
So another thing I've been kind of doing, and I use this as an excuse just to watch TV, but like Netflix, there's always like those 90-minute shows or like just other shows that you wouldn't normally watch. I watched Paris in the Rain, and it was Owen Wilson, and like the camera angles of it told a story, and I watched it on YouTube more explaining about it. I kind of got it while I was doing it. I didn't get the gist, but I was like, okay, like something's obviously happening here, like why they're doing such things. And then I watched a YouTube video, and they were like the placement of the people in the arguments, like this person's here because they're breaking this up and stuff like that, and how the film works. Do you think of stuff like that when you create your film? Like, storytelling through not just like obviously words and like that, but like camera angles and stuff like that.
For sure. I think more than anything, when we're doing, non-scripted stuff, when we're remote and there's not a, you're capturing things as they happen. So you don't have you have creative control, but you want that authenticity. You want it to feel authentic.
You don't have the timing.
Yeah. And a lot of times you don't have time to get like the perfect shot. Like you just have to capture it.
Yeah.
And that's part of what, Dropped is. It's raw. It's like real. But there are creative opportunities like when we do short films or documentaries. I had a chance to do the documentary on Fred Bear. And that was probably, when I look back at, all the things I've had a chance to do, the Fred Bear documentary is just like one of those things that it was kind of surreal because of just what he meant to the outdoor storytelling, outdoor filmmaker. And he was the guy. And he basically made archery hunting cool, but he also documented and filmed it. So doing a documentary on Fred Bear was kind of surreal, but there were definite moments in there that I wanted the camera to be kind of like a kind of voyeuristic angle. So, we were in what's called the vault, and the vault is a place that's locked up, secured, airtight, fireproof, and in the vault is all of Fredbear's most collectible and the things that mean the most to that collection. Mm-hmm. He would have original scripts of films that he would go out and shoot, that he would make hand notations on to change certain scenes, and that's a guy who knew what he had purpose when he went out there, because he shot things purposely. Like, he would set cameras up. He shot all his stuff. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things that he shot, they're all on camera, and kind of self-filmed a lot of that stuff. But he had a unique way to tell stories, old school way to tell stories. But we do, we have some commercials that, the camera is definitely put in a certain spot for a reason. Certain camera movements are done for a reason, and we know that if we do a left to right movement here, we're going to do the next shot is going to continue that left to right movement. It's going to continue that through the next shot. There's definitely a lot of that at play. A lot of what we do, we're not working with actors. A lot of it's just real, story, documentary story. Commercials are, a 30-second abbreviated story, mostly to sell a product or, build a brand. But for us, we don't have a huge opportunity to do that in a long form story.
Because it's not scripted or anything.
Because it's not scripted. Yeah.
So when you so we'll flip it up. When you watch movies, what do you watch in the sense of trying to learn something? Are there people, or are there specific genres? I mean, obviously you're big into outdoors, but is there anything else that you watch that it's that kind of piques my interest, or why they do this or why they do that?
I love documentaries, are good, but a film that really, to me, I couldn't wait for it to come out was The Revenant. And The Revenant is just so raw. And I read a lot of how the director and the DP wanted to shoot it. They wanted to use natural light through the whole story. Mm-hmm. So there was no artificial light used in that film. Everything was shot the first 4 hours of the day and the last 4 hours of the day. And it was painful for the cast. They were basically boycotting. I think he had quite a few members of the crew quit because they just didn't agree, because it took so long to shoot it. Mm-hmm. And it took so long, they ran out of snow where they originally shot. I think they were up in Vancouver or something.
So they go somewhere.
They had to go to Patagonia, I think, was to get more snow, because they ran out of snow here because they ran out of time, and they had to get more dollar from the company, motion picture company. They had to kick in more dollar because it was taking longer. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm not going to use artificial light. I'm going to use all natural lighting for this. Yeah. And you can tell, it just has that, it feels so real, but it's raw in the way that sound plays into it. I think that's what I teach a class at Mid called visual storytelling. And I have a part 1 and a part 2, and we started a curriculum out there called Hunting and Angling Scholars. It's basically has 3 different career paths: outdoor entrepreneur, outdoor media, and conservation officer. So you can pick kind of the path there. We started it 2 years ago now, so we're starting to get some students to go through it, but I'm in the outdoor media side. And it's interesting because when you like a film like The Revenant, it is so raw, but sound design is so key. Building in those audible signifiers of certain things, it takes you places when you hear certain sounds. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what is the missing piece. I think for more than anything, when I'm doing a series like Dropped or some of these short films, even some of the stuff that we've been doing lately for Be Alive. Sound design, I spend almost as much time on sound design, sound effects, making sure music and everything feeds all of your senses. It's not just about what I see, it's about what I hear.
Yeah.
It's about what I feel. It's about, how the camera moves. It's about, the lighting. There's so many aspects of telling a story that visually can change the way you experience it. But I think probably the biggest way to change the way somebody sees your story is through music and sound. That to me is the most powerful connection. That's the most, when I look back at some of the best work I'm the most proud of, it's probably got the best sound design. That's where it stands out.
Yeah. Because not only probably could you watch it and understand what's going on, but you could probably close your eyes and still know what's going on.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's the key. And, that's the thing we do in the class is, we watch a 1 minute piece of a film and they watch it with the sound. And then, they watch it again without the sound. And it just changes the dynamic of everything. And, so, a good film is A Quiet Place. Have you seen that?
A Quiet
Place.
What's his name?
Yeah, he's directed it as well. I can't remember his name.
Or he's Jim Halpert, but in The Office, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, he directed it, and his wife is actually Emily Blunt, I think, is who's this. But that is a film that it's all sound design.
Yeah.
And, you look at, it's all about, you can't say anything, these noises and the sounds, but
walking on sand.
Yeah, I mean those little things. That's like that sound. It just builds the intensity, and that's all horror movies are.
Yeah,
is sound.
And then the scream at the end.
Yeah,
being the only thing that's loud in the entire movie. Also, he makes it sound horrible.
Yeah,
because he's like, okay, I'm gonna scream and I'm gonna die just to save my family. Like it's
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that scream was nuts. And like
terrible.
Also when the kid, what do you have? Like the robot at the beginning.
Yeah, that robot. The music.
And then it was just like he was already kind of far away. And then they played that, and even as they were running to him, they were like trying to be quiet.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, like how could you ever?
No, that's a good film for sound design. I think it might have even won best sound design that year. I don't know. And then you look at some of these war movies that have layers and layers and layers and layers, dozens of layers of sound, because you've got bullets and got people and machines, and it's just crazy. Sound is definitely something you don't think about. You don't really. It's I never learned anything about it. It's just stuff you kind of teach yourself. Yeah.
And that's why that was one of the main things I asked you at the beginning with the van, because I've done one like little sound test in there, and it was just like, okay, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Because it's like you can hear everything, and it's just not gonna work. And I was wondering how much like actual stuff I would have to do in that to cut it all out, or like because you always see there's some vans you'll see they got those square. Foam
acoustical
pieces.
tiles,
And it's like, okay, you have one or two of those. Like, does that even do anything? Like,
in certain spots,
it
would. Yeah, I think this. You got a lot of windows. I would definitely have something you can, like curtains, you can put up on the windows that you can put up when you record.
Yeah.
The more soft things you put in there, pillows, the more stuff you have in there, it's going to absorb it. Yeah. But really, immediately when you look at straight above you is that big dome metal roof.
Yeah.
So if there's a way that you can, insulate that, like spray foam it, if you spray foam the top of it, a color, whatever color. I mean,
something.
If you put spray foam up there and painted it, it would look awesome probably, because it'd give it some texture.
Yeah.
But it'd be like, it'd suck it right up. Yeah. Even if you did a couple sections of it,
And then just because and then the other option would obviously be the stage on the back, or on the other side I have like a big awning, so I was like, if it was raining I could just do it out there or something like, and then just have the mics tighter or whatever. But that's the whole process to setting that up, because I cannot and even when the beginning, once I gut it, like if I were to do wanting a podcast out on the awning, there's a big open spot that I would pull out like a desk from outside, to where I could have like a fold out desk, and I would drill a hole through that to where my cords would go right through there, and then my podcast mics would just be out there, and I could just do it from there, have my computer on the inside, press go, walk outside, good to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. That's
be
awesome.
nice.
That would be awesome.
And that's the plan. And I will for sure keep talking to you about how to advance that plan.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the main reasons I want to talk to you too, was just to, like, obviously someone that's done it or at least done something along those lines.
Yep.
You more you talk to those people, the more you'll figure out. 'Cause
Oh, yeah.
obviously you don't know crap.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, that was a lot to take in. That was fun.
Yeah. That was great, man.
I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
so much to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. It was
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
I was just
You've
thinking
you've
about-
done a lot.
I was just thinking about, trying to think about what we talked about. But yeah, we talked about a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's usually how it goes. No one ever knows how it what we started with,
Yeah.
and then sometimes people always end up where we started.
Yeah.
I don't know how that always happens, but
No,
it always
it's
does.
called full circle. Yeah. Bring it first, full circle.
But yeah, we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah,
And
for
we'll
sure.
Maybe get the crew. Maybe get the.
I'll get Chris and Casey in. We'll sit down and we can do that. We can get the other crew. We can get Woody and Brandon in here, and we can talk about we're all roommates in college, so we have some
That'd be
pretty
fun.
good stories. Pretty good stories there. But yeah, no, this was great, man. Anytime. I'll have to have you up to the Be Live studio to our podcast room, and we're gonna be kicking off some podcasts there in the near future. So
Yeah, let me know. I'll definitely be a part of that. That would be awesome.
awesome, man. Appreciate your time.
Yep, you too.